This is the Analysis in Chains with Nathan Williams and Neil Kieran.
Welcome to Analysis in Chains. I'm Nathan Williams. Joining me today is Ben. Ben Clair has been on our show before. Good friend Ben, how you doing?
I'm good, Nathan. It's a lovely Sunday here in Barcelona. I apologize in advance for the quality of the sound here.
Oh, that's perfectly all right. We all know that Barcelona has terrible microphones. So, you know, I think that this is just the norm with you and me, Ben. Last time we had you on the show, we were in a cafe and we had a crying baby in the background. So I think this is probably an improvement from that.
I remember that very well, Nathan. A lovely Saturday morning in Berlin.
Yeah, I think you were hungover, if I remember correctly.
I was. It was a celebration week. Okay, how have you been?
Very, very busy. And one of the things I've been thinking about, honestly, Ben, a lot is that we're in the middle of a crypto winter. We've seen a lot of companies sort of struggle to get ahead in the blockchain space, but yet there have been a few companies that have really nailed it in the past couple of weeks with an ICO fundraising, like a traditional ICO. One of them has been on our show before, Fetch.AI, and the other has not been on our show, but it's here in Berlin. They've got their ICO coming up on the 6th, is Ocean Protocol. Have you been following these?
A little bit. The reason why they caught my attention is that those two companies, those two organizations have been working on the respective protocols for quite some time. As you said, you had Fetch.AI on your show quite a long time ago. Ocean...
No, it wasn't that long ago. I think it was December.
Oh, right, okay. Ocean has been on my radar for quite some time, actually, because the founders of Ocean have some background, have been involved in BigChainDB previously. So they've been around the world and they've been talking about what they're planning to do for quite some time. I think there's been a lot of work going into those two projects before going public in a way. Yeah, I think these are quite exciting projects. We're not talking about ICO scams, in my view.
I think that's part of it. It's difficult to run an ICO nowadays. I think that ship has sailed. The ship of let's run a quick ICO, make 20, 30, 50 million dollars with a white paper, and that's it. Both of these protocols are much further ahead than that. When I talked with Fetch.AI, with Humayun Sheikh last year and had him on the show, you could tell that a lot of thought had gone into their project, and they ended up, I think it was like 10 seconds or 20 seconds that they sold out in when they did their ICO. Can you confirm that? I don't remember exactly the number, but it was very fast.
Yeah, I was just at the start of the week. $6 million only. This is another thing that we could talk about in 10 seconds. Like literally in 10 seconds. I did not follow that on the spot, but reports are that in 10 seconds they raised the equivalent of $6 million.
Yeah, I guess 6 million isn't a lot compared to the ICOs of 2017, but it's a lot for right now.
And that is another thing, yeah, and I think it's important. Not only are we talking about projects that, you know, have been around for some time, but also we are talking about reasonable expectations in terms of fundraising, or at least more reasonable than they used to be.
It's interesting looking at Ocean as well, because Ocean is really a part of the Berlin scene. Like, I've met the founders a couple of times. I've met Trent McConaughey, the CTO, a few times because he's Canadian. He's here in Berlin. We've had beers together. I've met Bruce Pond, the CEO, a couple of times at different events. And, you know, they really have an all-star team with a good head on their shoulders, but they've also done their fundraising in stages, right? So they started fundraising, their first seed fundraising they did in 2017, back when it was still possible, and they raised $4 million. And then they did a pre-launch fundraising in early 2018, right when the knife was falling, you know, when the market was tumbling, but it was still possible to do, and they raised $18 million.
Yeah, so I suppose the Ocean ICO is targeting an amount that is nowhere near the Fetch.AI amount we talked about.
Well, exactly.
Judging by their previous raise.
Well, I think that they're doing 29 million euros or something like $35 million. And I think they, from my understanding, they've already got 27 million of it committed.
Yeah.
I was looking up their data. Maybe this is from their previous fundraises, and so maybe it isn't that much. I'm not 100% sure how to interpret the numbers, but I know that it just says that they've raised 27 million of the 35. So maybe that's just the previous fundraises.
I'm incredibly excited by Ocean. I wanted to say as well, Nathan, that it looks more mature in another way. As I looked into the Fetch.AI, I realized that they conducted their ICO via what is called the Binance Launchpad. What struck me with Ocean Protocol is that they're apparently the first ICO that's going to use another ICO protocol, shall I say, called on CoinList. And it's interesting. Like, it shows it's another sign of evolution and maturity in a way. We are not talking about randomly, hazily prepared ICOs. We are talking about fairly structured organizations and approaches now.
Yeah, and I don't think that they're like the first to use that platform.
Yeah, no, there must have been others. I mean, this is the first one that catches my attention. Well, there was a big one. Algorand was on there.
Oh, Algorand was on there. Yeah, okay. So this is not some no-name platform then.
No, no.
Algorand is huge.
I've actually looked into. I've actually looked personally into the Ocean one. Gone through the KYC and everything.
I went through the KYC too. Yeah, I didn't get in though.
You didn't?
No. This was back in 2018. So I wanted to participate in Ocean. I was really excited about it, and so I signed up for the KYC. But at that time, they were only accepting 10,000 maximum number of participants, and I couldn't get in time. I think it took me about an hour after they launched the KYC whitelisting, and they had filled up with their 10,000 people. So I was content to just sort of watch from afar.
Yeah, no, I mean, I watch ICOs from afar anyway, however much I like the project. As a matter of curiosity, I did go through the Ocean Protocol, let's say, whitelist whitelisting process, and it's nice and easy. I still struggle with those KYC checks that require you to put your passport in front of your computer camera. It's an absolute nightmare. It never works. But other than that, a very, very straightforward process.
One of the things that strikes me about these ICOs as well is that they're both quite technical. Ocean, for example, at least it's understandable. You know what they're doing. They're creating a decentralized marketplace to sell data. I've got data. I want people to buy the data. We can create a scenario where you can look and find data and then pay me for it. Makes sense. It's a real-world use case.
It more than makes sense, Nathan. As you know, this is a topic that's very close to to what I'm working on. I think they've been quite active, and Trent has done an extraordinary work, as far as I'm concerned, explaining how this is relevant to AI in the automobile industry, for example, and you know, autonomous driving requires a lot of data. That data is siloed between several organizations. How do you incentivize the sharing of that information among actors, which I think applies to so many other use cases. It's incredible.
Well, this is what I'm saying, Ben. I'm agreeing with you. I think that this is something that is a complex problem, but it is a real-world problem that is fairly easy to understand. Even if people don't understand the solution or don't understand how complex it is, they can understand that the problem is there, that, you know, selling data is not an easy task, and we're now living in a data economy. I think with Fetch, it's a little harder to understand what it is. Like, Fetch is, as I understand it, and my understanding is, even though I had him on my show, is still a little shaky, but it is a market for different prediction markets. So it's a way of connecting sort of autonomous agents that predict a market and then can interact with it. Like, I still have trouble exactly understanding what problem it is. I know it's a problem. I know it's a problem of the future, and I know that they've done a lot with it. But I think if I'm having trouble sort of teasing it apart, it's still hard for the average person to tease it apart. And so therefore their investors really have to either know what's going on or trust them that the work that they've done is speaks for itself.
Yeah, and I'm not entirely familiar with that business model. And I almost feel sorry that we put them in the same discussion as Ocean, which I'm extremely bullish on. but I still think that we are talking here about very matured thinking in terms of how they wish to position themselves. Now, as every ICO.
Well, look, Ben, they are actually fairly similar. You know, like when you're talking about a prediction market, essentially you're talking about an AI creating data. So they're both data plays in a sense.
And they're both involved in the automobile initiative, Mobi, which is in a way was a bit confusing to me. But yeah, you're right. I think we are talking about unlocking value from data with two different approaches being tested.
Well, maybe the data play is the future, because I haven't seen too many ICOs successful that haven't been in the data space.
Nathan, distributed data marketplaces are the future.
I believe it.
There is no question for me. Data being the most valuable resource on Earth. It is a resource, as I was noting that on Twitter yesterday. It is a resource that is universally generated by absolutely everyone on the planet. It is something that I think should be considered as we discuss UBI and other things like this. All of us and all our equipment and every action of our life generates data. That data has value, and those two outfits are here to unlock that value. That I find pretty exciting.
One of the big questions that I have is, how do you price the different elements of data or different data silos? Especially, like, it's one thing if you've got large entities, you know, automobile companies that are working together and that have sort of an idea of what sort of value it can deliver. But one thing that we've seen in most blockchain projects that expect the market forces to drive or to set the price value is that the market is bad at setting a price value, because the market has no idea what the price should be, and different players have different access to information. You can sort of expect a price for a certain amount of data or whatever to be stable if data is fungible, and if all of the players in an ecosystem have equal access to knowledge about the market, and then the price will be driven by market forces. Like, oh, I want 50,000 units of data, I want 7,000 units of data from these type of industries. But if you've got sort of a data marketplace that's driven by a token where people aren't really sure what the price should be, how much data is there, and there's a difference in people's understanding or access to information about this type of data and what it should be paid for, I'm very curious as to how it will play out in the long term, because you'll have an inefficient market. There may be a lot of arbitrage going on.
So am I. I completely agree with you. I don't doubt that even in the long term, the market may not be 100% efficient. However, I have no particular expertise, only wishful thinking here. I am personally convinced that this is an extraordinary market to tap into. The last 10-15 years have showed us exactly how valuable data is to centralized party. You have social media platform and other monetizing in crazy ways, monetizing private data, individual data, and you have SaaS models, software as a service models, that are incredibly also monetizing business data. And these businesses, SaaS and social media, those community businesses, are what's been generating value for investors over the past, again, 10, 15, maybe 20 years. It's the only resource. I mean, it's a resource, data, that's seen tremendous investment in it. Now, of course, we will need oracles. Of course, there will be some expert activity for which intermediaries, expert software developers are necessary. But if we get closer in any way to distributing the value of that data to its original holders and generators, I think we're up for something quite interesting.
It certainly is a wide future for this sort of market because it hasn't been attempted before, and you can see sort of the value that you're talking about in the data world just by looking at the market cap difference between someone like Google, who's sitting almost at $800 billion in market cap when they're only selling data, that's their main thing, versus someone like Ford or VW, which is about an order of magnitude smaller. And, giant car companies, about $100 billion or, $70 billion or $80 billion, and that's a huge amount of money, but yeah, an order of magnitude less than someone like Google. So when this gets decentralized in whatever facet, I could imagine it being quite an enormous market. The question is, how will that market function and what will the forces be? I still look at Bitcoin and how people have trouble predicting those prices and look what metrics to predict there. When you get into more complex digital assets like data that's semi-fungible maybe or non-fungible or what have you, like how does the price get set? How do people predict the price of this data and how do people actually transact in the market? It'll be fascinating to see how it goes.
I completely agree. I don't think we will see an end to it. But I hope and I'm convinced that we will see an evolution towards it, and a lot of effort being dedicated to supporting this kind of pricing models, which is quite exciting.
Well, given that these guys seem to be finding success with their ICOs, but in a data world, what do you think it means going forward for ICOs in general? And do you think anyone who's not doing a data market has a chance to compete in the ICO space in 2019?
You're asking too much from my limited understanding of market psychology.
Well, this is more about speculation than asking your expertise.
The writing was on the wall. The BitTorrent ICO, which was also quite successful, and I think the prices, by the way, of those tokens have evolved quite favorably after the ICO. But BitTorrent was kind of a good sign that data value was going to be tested as a market. I'm actually quite surprised, considering I'm only coming back to this topic because it is Ocean. Because I'm so fascinated and interested and excited by what Ocean Protocol is doing. My first reaction when I saw that they were launching an ICO was, hey, wait a minute, if people like that are launching an ICO, maybe there's something happening here that I didn't catch before. and I would be extremely curious personally to learn from insiders at Ocean Protocol what their perception, what their rationale was, because I don't think we've cleared all the regulatory hurdles and that we've managed all the concerns that still exist with ICOs. So to answer your question, Nathan, I think if your project looks attractive, particularly to holders of cryptocurrencies, to people who are familiar with the space, who are familiar with what blockchain technology may bring, I think it can still be, the ICO can still be a process for fundraising. It's just crowdsourcing. I think there are going to be other models.
I think that you hit it right on the head. The key to success in 2019 from outsiders' point of view here is that it's a well-known project, that it appeals to the insiders as opposed to the retail investors, that it's advanced in its actual development so people see, hey, there's something behind this, and that the fundraising is reasonable. That it's not asking for $50 million for a white paper, it's asking for $6 million for the launch of a mainnet. So there's a bit of a difference here between the 2017 hype and the 2019 protocols, but it does look like it is possible for the companies that have advanced to that point. But it'll be exciting to see how it goes. Thank you so much for joining me, Ben. And yeah, have a great time in Barcelona with the weather, and we'll have you on the show again soon.
Thank you, Nathan. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.